Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin said a lot of things Monday without saying really anything. We'll talk about that and big boards. We're going to look at which other players in the top 25 players the Steelers will be looking at in the first round. I'm Chris Carter, host of the Locked On Steelers podcast, joined by Wes Euler of Steeler Nation Radio and the Ears and Beers podcast. It's going to be a fun episode. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button on the video. Hit the subscribe button to our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our breaking news updates, and sometimes our bonus episodes like we had this weekend. Joining me today, as always, during the week, we've got our man, Wes Euler from Steeler Nation Radio, and, of course, the Ears and Beers podcast with Adam Crowley. Wes, what's up, man?
Mr. Carter, we finally made it. It's draft week. God bless the NFL. We're just about to have a bunch of content dropped right in our laps, baby.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be finally, this will be over with so we can be done with mock drafts and everything else. But Wes, before we get into our big boards, because we're going to do our top 25 big boards rankings, and we're going to debate which players fall where and debate things like that. I wanted to address Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert talking at Heinz Field on Monday, which they did. I was on hand for. I asked them questions and everything. And let me tell you something. They said a lot of things. There were a lot of words said in that transcript, but nothing was actually said, which is exactly the way they want it.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell people other than if you went into, if you went to listen to Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin today, if you went and read some of the things that they said, expecting some bombshells, expecting some incredible insight as to what the Steelers are thinking about doing on Thursday night and beyond, you're just kidding yourself. Every head coach, every GM does this. It's part of the job requirement. It's part of the game. It's part of the smoke and mirrors. And just because Kevin Colbert mentioned the 7th overall pick doesn't mean that the Steelers are dialed in on trading up with the New York Giants to the 7th overall pick. They have done this, Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin together, 14, 15 times just together alone. They know what they're doing. They're calculated. You're never going to get much from these types of things. So don't really put any stock into anything they said, except for when Mike Tomlin was talking about sweet tea. I don't think he was lying there.
When he said he bases where he goes sometimes on the best sweet tea.
I don't think he was lying there. That was the one truthful thing.
Yeah, I'll say that. A few takeaways that I had were basically this was why the Steelers signed in free agency the way they did. They wanted to make it so they could go into this draft, this pre-draft process and be like, yeah, we have starters at their position. We could go this way. We can go that way. We can go this way. We can go that way. We can go every which way we want, and it doesn't matter. And you can pretend like you know, but you don't. And that's what I've said a million times. Like, I think they're going this way, but I'm not sure because they can go a billion different directions, and that's the way they want it. It's not easy to predict where they'll be going. And if you're saying you know which way they'll go, unless you are in the front office with them, you're just guessing. And if you get it right, you'll be thumping your chest. And it's like, okay, but you were guessing just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
But the only other thing I thought that was actually of some consequence was Mike Tomlin, when asked about Stephon Tuitt's status. Yeah, he did say he's doing well, but he wouldn't give any update on if he's in the building or not. I was actually talking to Jim Wexell about this longtime Steelers beat writer, and we both were talking, and we kind of came together on this thought, like, what if Stephon Tuitt has been working out this entire time, and the Steelers just aren't telling anyone? And the whole idea,
a possibility,
and it's just a way of making people think, oh, they're desperate for a defensive lineman in this NFL draft to again further cloud their draft possibilities. And then you go into then say Monday or Tuesday, whenever the players do some more voluntary workouts after the draft process is over, all of a sudden you see Stephon Tuitt in those pictures, and you're like, oh, he's fine, but it doesn't matter anymore because there's nothing anybody else can do. I thought that was a funny thing to at least kind of look at and say, oh, that could be a thing.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely spot on there. That was one of the things that I guess raised my ears as well too, made my ears prick up, if you will, when he was asked about Stephon Tuitt and kind of the similar non-committal but kind of committal answer that we've heard from Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin this offseason. I'll say this, though, Chris. I think you're right. Like, I'm still not going to worry about Stephon Tuitt. If we get to minicamp and OTAs in a couple months and he's not around and it's still that same kind of vague answer, then I will start to worry. But I'm not going to put the cart before the horse in that regard. I think, like you've said, there's a lot of different teams are trying to send messages and mixed signals and all these different things. Let's make it through the draft. Let's get to May and June and get into some mini camps and OTAs, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Now let's get right to what we were talking about, our big boards. Now, okay, what we're going to do in this segment, we're going to go through our top 15. So let's start with our 1 through 5. Wes, my 1 through 5 big board right here. And again, these aren't players that the Steelers realistically pick. This is like if they were picking every single pick in the NFL draft, which is how the Steelers do their big boards.
Correct.
This is who I'd go. Trevon Walker is my 1. Ikem Ekwonu my 2. Aiden Hutchinson's my 3. Evan Neal's my 4. And Ahmad Gardner's my 5. Who are your top 5?
We got the same 5, just in a little bit of a different order. I have Aiden Hutchinson 1. I have Evan Neal 2. I have Ekwonu 3, Trayvon Walker 4, and Mr. Sauce Gardner 5.
Wow, we are very close there. All right, so there's our top 5. Now, after that, the next 5, 6 through 10, I have Kayvon Thibodeau at 6, Kyle Hamilton at 7, Jermaine Johnson, edge rusher from Florida State, at 8, Derek Stingley Jr. at 9, and wide receiver Jamison Williams at 10. Who are your next 5?
Ooh, good. We got a couple of similarities here, but some differences as well too. Number 6, I have Kyle Hamilton, safety from Notre Dame. 7, Charles Cross, offensive lineman from Mississippi State, tackle. Kayvon Thibodeau at 8, the edge rusher from Oregon. My guy Devin Lloyd at 9th, linebacker out of Utah, and then same as you, Jamison Williams, wide receiver, Bama at 10.
Very cool there. Okay, then our last 5 of our 15, 11 through 15, that's where I have Charles Cross at 11, Chris Olave at 12, Drake London at 13, Jordan Davis at 14, and Garrett Wilson at 15. Who are your last 5 there?
I got Garrett Wilson at 11. I have Jermaine Johnson at 12, Derek Stingley Jr. at 13, Drake London at 14, and Chris Olave at 15.
Interesting. Okay, so of these top 15 guys that you and I have listed here, a lot of them are the same names, some of them a little different. Of these top guys, who, if you had to pick 2 guys you think are the most likely to either fall down to the Steelers or be traded up for, who would they be?
Ooh. Now, see, that might be different answers. To fall to the Steelers, to still be there, let's start there. To still be there potentially at 20, I would say Chris Olave and I would say Devin Lloyd are the 2 of my top 15 that I realistically think could still be there at 20. To trade up for, Chris, now that gets interesting.
Right?
I'm probably going to say Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley Jr. Out of this, I'm not trading up for an offensive lineman. There's so many good wide receivers. I'm not trading up for one of those guys either. Okay. There's no quarterbacks in either of our top 15, so that's off the board. If I'm going to trade up for one of the guys that we've talked about, I think it might be one of those 2 top corners.
Okay.
Oh, okay. You didn't expect that answer, did you?
No, I've been on the Kyle Hamilton trade up train for a little bit.
I like that too. I like that too. Although, this is a separate conversation. I don't want to get away from what we're doing, but the Edmonds, the strong safety, right. I think I'm just a little more, I'm willing to try and fill out other areas first. Yeah.
No, and Colbert did say that much in one of his statements, was that, like, if there's a position where they feel 2 players are very close to each other in talent and in value, they will go with the position that they need more than the other, in that case. So there's at least some reveals there. All right, so if I were to go with 2, in my 2, because our top 15 are a little different, I'm going Kyle Hamilton as my trade up guy. Okay. And Jordan Davis is my drop down guy, because some people are just not high on the defensive line. And on the ultimate mock draft that we did of all the Locked On hosts, Jordan Davis naturally fell to me at 20, and I was like, you think I'm gonna I'm running to the podium, I'm like, check please.
I'm writing that name on the card with the quickness, and I'm jogging. I don't know if I'm sprinting, but I'm jogging to the podium.
It's gonna be a briskful
exactly.
a briskful gait.
I don't sprint anywhere anymore, Chris. All right, I'm 31 years old.
We're getting older. Anywhere. Yeah, who does that? Anyways, but we're gonna so those are our top 15. Now those are guys that we're projecting probably won't be around. What we're going to do is reveal our next 10 to finish out the top 25, and then we'll get to the nitty-gritty of who the Steelers should or will take in this NFL draft. We'll talk about that in just a second here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. But first, going to talk to you guys about Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is one of my favorite products out there, and I literally use it every single day. They have this product called AG1 that it helps me if I don't have time to prepare all my meals or get the proper nutrients I want every day. AG1 is there to help with my gut health, giving me more energy and optimized immune system. And as an asthmatic, it's helping me breathe a lot easier. I've been on AG1 for about a month and a half now, and I love it. It doesn't taste like it's super healthy or it's heavy to gulp down. It's just a mild tropical taste that I actually look forward to every morning. With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all the things. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day, and that's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. It just costs less than $3 a day and contains less than 1 gram of sugar, and it supports better sleep quality. Trust me, it does. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NFL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. We're also brought to you by betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting stats and information. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, news, and including this year's NBA playoffs, the start of the Major League Baseball season, which is well underway, and the Stanley Cup playoffs, which are right around the corner. If you want to get in all the action, every night seems to be explosive in the NBA, and guess what? The NHL is going to be just as exciting when they get started. It's going to be a blast, so get to make your money by getting on betonline.net. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action when you visit BetOnline, where the game starts. And Wes, when we do back-to-back ad reads, we keep it rolling here with the Locked On Steelers podcast. Again, I'm Chris Carter. He's Wes Euler of Steeler Nation Radio. Wes, let's get back to our next 5 in our big board. Now, this is where the nitty-gritty starts to happen, because now these are the players we're projecting to legitimately be there for the Steelers to look at. So I'm going to go with my next 5. At 16, that's where I have Devin Lloyd. At 17, I have Trent McDuffie, cornerback out of Washington. 18, cornerback out of Clemson, Andrew Booth Jr. 19 is where I have Malik Willis. And 20, I have Daxton Hill. Who are your next 5?
Number 16, Trevor Penning, offensive tackle for UNI. 17, Jordan Davis, defensive tackle, Georgia.
Okay.
George Karlaftis at 18, Tyler Linderbaum, my former crush, at 19, Devonta Wyatt, Jordan Davis's running mate, at 20.
Okay, very interesting there. I'm not a Trevor Penning guy, I have to say. I don't like how he gets bullied, with bull rushes. I don't like his bad attitude when he loses reps, and it looks like he'll take some bad penalties. I love his size, and I love that he can get nasty at times, but that hasn't been enough for me. But there are teams out there that really like him, so I'd be really intrigued to see that. I threw out George Karlaftis on mine. I don't have him anywhere on my top 25, but there's a lot of people who are very up and down about him. Some people have him top 10. Some people have him back into the first round.
Yeah, you know what? He was an interesting one for me. Andrew Booth Jr. is another interesting one for me. Sometimes I talk myself into them being top 15 guys. Other times I do the kind of, are they top 20? Are they top 25 for me? Like, the way that you have some doubts about Trevor Penning, I think that's kind of like, I'm kind of in that department with Andrew Booth Jr. Maybe Trent McDuffie a little bit too. Like, I think they're both good.
Yeah.
I just think corner has quietly become one of those positions. It's not nearly in the same stratosphere as quarterback, but that I think teams get a little thirsty for, teams reach for a little bit, just because it's a passing league. You got to have cornerbacks. And there's so many talented wide receivers in the NFL right now. It's insane. Most of these teams have 2-3 guys that are legit. So it's funny how all these things shake out. But yeah, so that was 20. Yeah, Devonta Wyatt 20. Did you go to 25 or just 20 there?
I went to 20 there.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So that's where we're at. So now is our bottom 25. Last 5 here. At 21, I have Lewis Seen, safety of Georgia. 22, I have offensive lineman Zion Johnson of Boston College. 23, I have Nakobe Dean, linebacker of Georgia. 24, I have the defensive lineman Devonta Wyatt of Georgia. And 25, Kenny Pickett, quarterback of Pitt.
Oh, hey, no homerism there. He's just being honest.
Hey, if I was homerism, he would have been number 1. All right.
Well, ain't that the truth? No, listen, if he was a homerism for you, he would have been number 13 or he would have been number 9. All right.
You know where I was going to go with that next.
21st, I've got Trent McDuffie. 22nd, Dax Hill. 23rd, Treylon Burks. 24th, yo boy, Andrew Booth Jr. And then 25th, a guy that you and I have discussed plenty, both here on Locked On and on SNR, Zion Johnson.
Where'd you have Malik Willis?
28. He's my first quarterback at 28.
Oh, wow. So you have Malik Willis outside of the top 25.
I do. I don't have any quarterbacks in the top 25.
That's very interesting. So in your book, does that mean that if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you don't draft a quarterback in the first round?
If I'm Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin, okay, which I would be, just throwing it out there. All right, I'll take half of what you're paying them, Mr. Rooney. I think I would take Malik Willis at 20, and that would be it. The upside is there enough for me to potentially dance with Malik Willis and take that chance. Everybody else, I don't know. I don't know if you want to get into this, so I'll be very brief, but the closer and closer we get, the more and more I hear about these guys, the Kenny Pickett's and the Desmond Ritters and some of the other, I keep hearing about, oh, they're such fierce competitors. Oh, they're such great leaders. Oh, they were winners in college. Okay. Like that's the type of thing that we do about he's a nice, when you're talking up one of your boys to a hot chick, right? You're like, he's such a nice guy and he's got a great job. He's, like you're not talking about his looks. You're not talking about his teeth or his eyes or his hair, or whatever. He's got nice abs. You're doing all this ancillary stuff. I don't care. Oh, he wins games. Oh, he's a fiery competitor. Who the hell in the NFL isn't a fiery competitor?
And that was when Aditi Kinkhabwala asked Tomlin about that very thing. She was like, "What is the main trait you look for in a quarterback?" And he was like, "Nobody knows." And
he's lying. He's lying.
and then he said, "You know what? I'll say competitive spirit." And he talked about firing.
That's more important than mobility and accuracy.
Exactly. So like, there's things there, but they're not gonna tip there because they're trying to keep their cards close to their chest. That's why they're playing that game. That's why they're playing that game. So there you have it. Those are each of our top 25s. Wes, give me the 3 guys you're most excited about that are reasonable in the back end of your 25 that the Steelers could and should get.
Okay, number 1, Jordan Davis.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have talked about him. I think we're both big fans.
Yeah,
I think he comes in and he has an instant impact on the run game, and then you hope he grows from there. But I tell you what, if he comes in and helps the run defense go from dead last, 32nd overall in the NFL to 14th, 15th, I think that's a hell of a pick there at 20. So he would be number 1. Number 2. Number 2, I'll go Devonta Wyatt.
Okay.
And you've kind of convinced me, like, if we would have done this exercise a couple weeks ago, I think I would have had him higher than 20th on my big board.
Mm-hmm.
You've kind of convinced me, though, about some of was he just a cog in the Georgia machine? He's 24 years old. It's not like he's 20. It's not like he's Devin Bush doing what Devin Bush did at Michigan at age 20. Devin Bush could have gotten a college degree in the age difference from the time that he got drafted to when Wyatt was drafted. So I'll go Wyatt at 2. And then can I cheat a little bit?
Sure.
The guy that I have at 26 that I didn't say because he was the first one outside of my top 25 was Jahan Dotson. And I think I would put him in that group as well, too. As much as I really like Treylon Burks and he was 23rd on my list, I don't know how his skill set fits the Steelers. They need a speedier, more burner wide receiver. So that's who I'll go with. I'll go with the 2 Georgia defensive tackles. I will one being Davis, 2 being Wyatt. And then how about Jahan Dotson as well, too, for my 3?
That's very fair. If I'm going with my 3 of guys that I find reasonable on the back end of this right here, I'd start with Andrew Booth Jr. because I think that Trent McDuffie will be gone. Andrew Booth Jr. seems like the most likely cornerback that will be available to them. I think that he's a true cornerback 1 in this NFL draft class, and they need a cornerback 1. All they have is cornerback 2 is currently on their roster.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also go with, Jordan Davis is my top, but I just don't know if he makes it that far. Daxton Hill is up there, and I explained before.
I like Dax Hill more and more.
I think that especially with drafting Terrell Edmonds, you have a true strong safety in him, a free safety in Minka. Dax Hill is your guy in the slot immediately and can then go into safety roles. It would give the defense a lot of flexibility, a lot of athleticism, and eventually he can become one of your starting safeties, over Edmonds over time, and help yourself out there. So
could play some big nickel this year.
Yeah, so and that's where I see Dax Hill truly coming in. He's also good at blitzing the quarterback. I talk about that I wrote about that for DK Pittsburgh Sports as well for Tuesday. So go check that out with Carter's Classroom. But yeah, I like Dax Hill, Andrew Booth Jr., Jordan Davis. But again, if he's not there, and then I'll throw in third. That's where I'll throw in Malik Willis because in my big board I have him at 19. If he were to land there, if he's there, I'm like, you know what? I'm not mad at taking him at 20. Like you said before, he's the one quarterback who I think is worth that spot. I just don't think he actually will be there. Remember, these big boards are how we would pick these guys if we had every pick, not how they'll actually pick them. And actually, I asked Mike Tomlin about that, and asking them like, hey, what's, I used to say, you told us back in Georgia's pro day that Jordan Davis probably ain't going to be around when you guys pick, so what how many dynamic defensive players are there in this class that can be available to you guys if you stay put at 20, and does that compute for you guys as part of your plans? And he said, we don't put a lot of worry into speculation about what other people will do. We decide what we will do, and we go from there. Because when you worry about what other people do, you waste your time. So that's part of how the Steelers operate. And I thought he gave a very coordinated answer there. I'm really interested to see how this board falls. But we both have very similar top 25s. Some changes here and there. But the bottom line is, like I've said all along, there's going to be some serious playmakers available at 20 who could become instant playmakers for the Steelers and maybe even pillar players going into this first step of the post Ben Roethlisberger era.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's the thing with this draft, Chris. It sounds weird, but there was a lot of talk about at points throughout the season how the Steelers should just tank and just focus on the draft. Of all the years that you would want to tank to try and get a better pick, like I don't know if this is the year to do that. This wasn't the year.
No.
Because hey, don't get me wrong. A lot of the offensive tackles, Trayvon Walker, Sauce Gardner, right? There's some dudes without a doubt. But I think there's real depth in this draft. That's the best way to put it. There's not the Joe Burrow. There's not the Trevor Lawrence. There's not even, I don't think like a Saquon Barkley was viewed when he was coming out of the draft. Like there's not playmakers like that, I don't think, at the top of this draft. But there is some real, like that, the middle class of this draft, I think is as strong as we've seen in some time. And so, hey, if you're picking at 20, it's a good place to be because you're going to have some real talent there.
There certainly will be talent there, and there's a specific way that I think the Steelers could address things talent-wise in this NFL draft to set themselves up next year. And it revolves around the quarterback position, but maybe not in the way that a lot of fans are talking about right now. We'll talk about that in just a minute here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. But first, I got to talk to you guys about RockAuto.com. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? For example, the Honda Odyssey fuel pump can be $353 from a chain store, but $216 when you visit RockAuto.com. Rock Auto is a family-owned business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto's prices are reliably low for every customer, and they have everything you could need from brake parts to tail lamps to motor oil and even new carpet. So go explore their easy-to-use website today, and you'll find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Be sure to write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box so that they know that we sent you? Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com today. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm Chris Carter. He's Wesley Euler. We're talking all things Pittsburgh Steelers, NFL draft. We just gave you our top 25 big boards on the Steelers. And I want to go, and we've talked about who could be those guys that are reasonably there, who we're ranking, who could fall there. But, Wes, there's a lot of talk about getting a quarterback. There's a lot of talk about getting the defense. But shouldn't there be an effort to give the Steelers the guy who the Steelers paid to be a quarterback, at least for this year and next year, Mitch Trubisky, getting him some more help? We had a caller call into the show. And again, you can call in at any point in time, leave a voicemail for the show at 412-223-6644. And if you leave that voicemail, you leave your name and where you're from and your question. Please keep it under a minute. You do that, and you'll get a chance to get on the show based on how we're able to do questions. We're sorry we can't get everyone all the time because there's a lot of guys and girls calling and asking questions. But today we have our question from James from Buffalo, who was asking about Mitch Trubisky.
Hey, Chris, this is James. Calling from Buffalo, New York. Man, I enjoy the show. I've been listening for a while. Just wanted to give you guys a shout out. But hey, here's my question. So I've been all over the place, I guess, with this draft. 1 minute I want defense, 1 minute I want offense. But I guess I'm on the offensive kick as of right now. I think we need to give Mitch Trubisky, some weapons, put some things around him. The defense looks like it's going to be good. Obviously, we got some stars over there. But if we can just give Mitch all that he can have, and I think in a sense, I just think we need to get a receiver in maybe the first round, and I would love to get that Kenneth Walker, the running back, in the second round, and just give him a running back and a stud receiver. That way we can solidify that running back and have some nice receivers around him, just to get him all the talent he can have. And we got to keep up with some big time offenses in the AFC. So that's just my opinion. And thanks for taking the call. Have a good one.
And thank you, James, for your question from Buffalo. I do agree that the Steelers need to add playmakers on offense. Now, I will say there's no way they're getting Kenneth Walker. He's going to go, I think, second or third round at the highest. The Steelers have Najee Harris. They're not spending another
running back that high.
They're not taking a running back that high. I do think there's a chance they take a running back in day 3, 4th, 5th, 6th round. Maybe 7th round. It depends if they trade up somewhere. I do think a running back gets added at some point in this draft class. They're not adding one of those guys though that early. But receiver is a very important position of need. The Steelers, like I've said before, Deontay Johnson, he's in his contract year. Chase Claypool has been meh. At least through his 2 years, he has potential, but we don't know if he'll reach it. They signed Miles Boykin, meh. They need answers at that position. It seems to me that would be an ideal thing to do in this draft class. Get 2 wide receivers, playmakers that could give Mitch Trubisky something exciting to work with, so that maybe you can have some more explosive plays on offense.
Yeah, I completely, James, right? That was his name.
Yes.
I completely agree. Like we've been doing a lot of this leading up to the draft. What's your and be realistic, but what's your best case scenario for the Steelers at pick 20 and pick 52? For me, it's that you come away with a defensive lineman and a wide receiver. And so maybe it's, first round is Jordan Davis, second round is Sky Moore. Right. Or it's first round is Chris Olave, second round is Travis Jones.
Right.
Like that to me is the ideal scenario, because if I'm looking into a crystal ball, right, if we're looking down the road and we get to November, we get to December, and the Steelers are winning games, the Steelers are in a division hunt, all that stuff, they're having a successful season. To me, Chris, it's going to be because, one, the defense is one of the truly elite units in the NFL, like one of the best 3 units in the National Football League.
Elite.
And 2, that they have an offense where Mitch Trubisky is able to function. They can run the ball. They can hit the occasional play action to the wide receiver, and an offense that is very much a function of the run game and hitting some big plays and relying on your playmakers. And so because of all that, like the ideal scenario, like if I'm really going to narrow this down, at pick 20 for me, I think it's Jordan Davis, or I think it's Chris Olave. Maybe you get lucky and Jameson Williams falls to you. I don't see that happening.
Right.
But I think that's my ideal scenario at pick 20 is you add Olave or you add Jordan Davis, and then whichever way you go the other way in round 2. But I'm with James completely. I think Mitch Trubisky, there's enough on this offense right now that they can get some good things done. The one thing maybe that's missing, though, is another wide receiver. You got the tight ends. The offensive line should be much better. Najee's going into his second year. Still feels like you need more in that wide receiver room, though. So I completely agree. And that's when you start to project, all right, if the Steelers are going to have a good year, if they're going to be in the hunt down the stretch, if they're going to win double-digit games, if they're maybe going to contend for a division title, and certainly at least make the playoffs, that's how it feels like it all has to shake out.
I agree. You need, because if you need playmakers on offense, and another thing to remember is, a lot of times the Steelers were able to dink and dunk their way down the field because Ben Roethlisberger was able to do that. With Mitch Trubisky, you don't want him making as many reads throughout a game.
Correct.
You want more of those plays to just be explosive. Like, hey, they sold out on the run. This guy was wide open. He hit him deep. Get more explosive plays.
Like when Jared Goff was having success with the Rams. That's how it was. Like 17-18 Goff with the Rams. That's what you described as exactly what McVay and company did with Jared Goff. I mean, and it worked. They made it to a Super Bowl.
Exactly. And that's my whole point here, is that Mitch Trubisky isn't going to be thought of to be the field general that just dissects defenses left and right. But he's going to be expected to be like, hey, we're creating these big play opportunities for you. You need the arm and the legs to make them happen when they're there. And I think that's going to be the big challenge of his legacy in Pittsburgh and his legacy for his rest of the time in the NFL. You're not a big name quarterback who's going to make consistent plays for an entire season, but you're a guy who is smart enough to understand when to take those type of shots, and they're going to trust you and give you those opportunities. So it's going to be important to give him players who best open up those opportunities for big plays, like Chris Olave, like Jameson Williams. And hey, I'd say even Treylon Burks, if he's somewhere around that range, just depends on, can Treylon Burks be the explosive player he was in college for Arkansas. So we'll see how that plays out. But both of us agree with you, James, here from the call-in line, that getting explosive offensive playmakers is in the decision. Outside of running back, that would be a much later decision. I think, but Wes and I are in agreement on that. That's our question. That's our show for today. Thanks so much for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. We appreciate everyone who calls in and leaves voicemails. Again, we only have so much time on this show, so we're sorry if we don't get to you right away. We'll try to get to as much as we can leading up to the draft and so on and so forth. But we also want to thank Wes Euler for making time to come on this show every week. He's a treasured guest he does great work all the time in his job. He also does great work when he pops up on this show. Let people can find you, follow you, and get more of your work, Wes.
Yeah, co-host of Steelers Blitz with Arthur Moats on Steelers Nation Radio. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, Steelers Blitz. You can listen to us live at noon on Steelers.com, on the Steelers app, iHeart website, iHeart app as well, too. If you are a tortured WVU soul like me, Ears and Beers podcast for all your Mountaineer sports talk. And I should plug it here, Chris. We've got special coverage, 25 extra live hours of programming on SNR for the NFL draft. So Thursday night from 7 o'clock to midnight, it's going to be a combination of myself, Arthur Moats, Dale Lawley, Matt Williamson. We're going to be joined by Alan Faneca at points. We're going to be joined by Craig Wolfley and Tom Bradley at points. But Thursday night from 7 o'clock to midnight, SNR will have live coverage the whole way. Friday, same time slot, I believe, 7 o'clock to midnight, and then Saturday from noon until 7. So
that's a lineup.
Come get your fixins. It's something like 21, 23 live or 11 to 7 on Saturday. Pardon me. So we got crazy live wall-to-wall programming. So, if you're sitting there and you're just looking for something to have on in the background, instant analysis, reactions, we a lot of times too say, let's go hypothetical here and say the Steelers pick, they pick Devin Lloyd at pick 20. A lot of times we get their position coaches. So we'll get Jerry O on the show 20 minutes later to talk about Devin Lloyd. It's really cool. Nice. So SNR for all your live coverage throughout the draft. If you're looking for instant reaction and analysis and interviews and all that stuff.
That's awesome. Do check out. They do amazing work at SNR. Hey, I appreciate when you and Moats have me on every Monday.
Yes, sir.
For the show. So I appreciate
we might have to call you Thursday or Friday or Saturday. We're gonna have some time to kill.
Hey man, hit me up, man. I'll be around. But again, thank you, Wes, for joining the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. You can see this show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all of our daily episodes Monday through Friday, as well as our bonus episodes and our breaking news updates. Thanks again to Wes for joining us. We got Tony Serino on tomorrow talking about your Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see you then.